Good afternoon, sports fans, and welcome to another edition of Lead Off Thursdays. Today we have ourselves quite the show as we are here to bring in the pre-4th of July festivities, such as the FIFA World Cup, as well as the Gold Cup, as well as some MLS action to start things off. Who is in the championship match? Did anyone predict the U.S. to actually make it to their final in their tournament? I certainly did. Also, the Women's Euro Cup is underway as well, as which team will be able to come out on top. And we got some WNBA news as Indiana Fever were victorious in the Commissioner's Cup Championship. And we have some MLB action. Dodgers are still looking good after Clayton Kershaw managed to have a historic day last night with 3,000 strikeouts. And we have some NBA and NHL off-season news as kind of in that position where they are basically a little slow to start. Then we've got some racing happening. We've got the Formula One heading down to Great Britain. Then we have NASCAR heading down to the Windy City for the Chicago Street Race. And then we have some IndyCar going to Mid-Ohio. And then we also close off the show with some Wimbledon. Lots of upsets happening in Wimbledon. So little time. So grab yourself some dinner, grab yourself a beverage, sit back, relax, and let us serve you up some sports action. This is Teran Rodriguez, along with Ricky K, here on Lead Off Thursdays on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome one, welcome all to another edition of Lead Off Thursdays. Thank you all for joining us on this beautiful Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening, Thursday, wherever you were listening from. Either way, you've made your way in episode 3 of Lead Off Thursdays. And joining me today, we have a special guest. He's actually the New York insider for IE Sports Radio, and he's also the host of our Friday show, the Friday preview. But he is an all-around amazing person, and with me today is Ricky K. How you doing, Ricky?
Happy to be here. I should call you Uncle Teran for this show, but it's gonna definitely glad to kick off our 4th of July weekend. So it's fitting that the two hosts that get your weekend set usually here on IE Sports Radio combine to put together what I think is actually a pretty good 4th of July slate. And considering how sometimes sports are in that downtime in the summer, I think we've got some really cool events lined up for this weekend.
I definitely think so too, and I think it's going to be fun time. So without any further delay, let's jump on into all the action. So we'll start off with the FIFA Club World Cup. It's down to just two. Well, actually, let's do FIFA Club World Cup. So, Ricky, what have you been liking when it comes to the FIFA Club World Cup? And have there been any surprises for you regarding any of the teams that are still remaining?
Well, I think the biggest surprise so far, Teran, was the upset that Al Hilal had on Man City, because last week we were on and I was like, Man City's got this. They were dominating group play. They beat Juventus 5-2, and that was like one of the fun back and forth extra time kind of games. From kind of like the Club World Cup does extra time, but the Gold Cup goes right to PKs. It's kind of weird, but that's a different take. I think it's been interesting to watch these games and seeing like PSG dominate Miami like they did, seeing how the weather delays have impacted things, like with the Benfica-Chelsea match, where now these European countries are going to be afraid to come, not afraid, but are angry about the weather and weather delays and mid-afternoon heat and all those things. It's been kind of interesting to see. But I think this is shaping up to be a pretty strong quarterfinals. It is mostly European teams, but not something that we didn't expect. But I think especially when we get into the schedule, Saturday is going to be, I think, an epic day of world international soccer for sure.
Yeah, tomorrow starts the quarterfinals. You've got Fluminense, and then you've got Al Hilal in the first quarterfinal, and then after that you've got Palmeiras taking on Chelsea, and that's on Friday. Then you jump to Saturday's quarterfinals. As Saturday you've got this. My display wants to actually work. You got Paris Saint-Germain taking on Bayern Munich. Then you got Real Madrid taking on Borussia Dortmund. Those are some exciting matchups, and I definitely agree with you, Ricky. This is exciting times for us. I think any of those 4 teams can win it all. I think we're in for a treat when it comes to this weekend. So right off the bat, who do you think will win the whole court? Well, who do you think has the best chance to make it to the finals? Which of those 8 teams will make it to the final?
Well, I said in the opening series with Larry the other day, my prediction is the winner of PSG and Bayern will win the whole thing. Because I think you look at the way PSG dominated, you kind of look at the way Bayern has been playing. Harry Kane has kind of found his game. He's had 2 goals in his last match when Bayern picked up the win over Flamengo. And I just think both these teams are in good form right now, that I could think we're going to get a really epic game Saturday at noon. But that's really tough. It's Real Madrid against Dortmund. Both teams are playing well over there. I kind of like Real Madrid in that match. That game is actually in my neck of the woods here at MetLife Saturday. And then the 2 semis and the final will be here as well. So good kickoff to the World Cup final being here next year. I think the sneaky matchup is the Friday night game. That's the 9:00, which in Philly on 4th of July. I think that's a real epic scene for sure. Palmeiras against Chelsea. Could be a tough match for Palmeiras. They have been fought really well in this tournament, but the win over Botafogo in extra time, rallying from 2 goals down against Messi to force a draw. I think if Palmeiras can play the defensive side, but you have Chelsea that I think is just on that good form, I think they're the team that can kind of surprise some people. But I just see Chelsea winning. So I'm going to go with I'm going to say Bayern wins the whole thing, but I think the winner of PSG, Bayern, we will ultimately win the tournament.
Yeah, I think Bayern Munich is definitely going to and they're going to at least make the final, in my opinion. I definitely think they've got a real chance. I think Chelsea also has a real chance as well. And then also I think Real Madrid has a good shot. I wouldn't be surprised if either of those 3 made the final or 2 of those 3 made the final. So I think it's going to be fun. Like I said, it's going to be a fun series, and I can't wait for it. I really think that this whole FIFA Club World Cups is really good, is really intense. I know it hasn't been as it has been as ideal as it has been in years past, but it's some fun soccer. It's especially fun for all soccer fans. So keeping the ball rolling when it comes to the soccer press portion of the show, you got the CONCACAF Gold Cup Series. So it's down to just 2 teams, the U.S. and Mexico. And it's going to be held in NRG Stadium, home of the Houston Texans. And it's going to be on Sunday. It's going to be a fun matchup. Ricky, did you have the U.S. make it all the way to the final? Because honestly, I certainly didn't, especially after how they lost to Turkey and whatnot.
I think I still did, just because I think you look at CONCACAF. I know Pochettino's squad has kind of been in a rut, but I think looking at some of these other countries, I think it's kind of a surprise that Panama flamed out in penalties in the knockout stage against Honduras. Canada losing in penalties after all the trash that Jesse Marsh talked about against that his A team was here and that they were ready to win, that they couldn't find a way to beat Guatemala, losing in penalties. And I think the U.S. has kind of started to find its form. Diego Luna was excellent last night, 2 goals in the first 15 minutes. I know people will hark on the defense letting Guatemala score late, but that's still a win. I think you take a 2-1 regulation win. And I think Mexico has kind of gone under the radar a little bit. We haven't really talked about them a lot, but they're putting up clean sheets. Raul Jimenez put up a goal last night in the 50th minute in a chippy game against Honduras. Jimenez scored in the last match between Mexico and the U.S. in a game that Mexico beat the U.S. for the first time since 2019. So there's a rivalry at least here. I think Mexico is the favorite. But the U.S., I think, is kind of embracing that they're not the favorite and that they're the chip on their shoulder, even though, like you said, they didn't really earn being the favorite with their matches against Turkey and Switzerland and the lack of an effort that they really put into those. But I think it's good to see Diego Luna playing well, Malik Tillman playing well, and Chris Richards, because those guys try to make next year's World Cup. And what has stood out to me about the U.S. in this tournament is Matt Freese in goal, who has done excellent for NYCFC, but hasn't really had his international moment. When he stopped those penalties against Costa Rica, that kind of was his moment on the Team USA stage. So I'm gonna pick the U.S. because I mean there's no reason for me to pick Mexico, but I do think Mexico is the favorite.
Larry B pops into the chat room. He says USA, USA. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna be honest. I didn't have the U.S. make it all the way to the final. I think they've been really impressive. I never doubted Mexico all that much. I definitely think Mexico was kind of flying under that radar, and now they've appeared on everyone's radar. So I think this is going to be a barn burner of a matchup. I think this one's going to be an instant classic. I really like this matchup between both of these teams, and I really think that this one can go either way. I know the U.S. has the quote-unquote home field advantage because it's being played in the U.S., but do not count out Mexico by any means. I definitely think it's going to be exciting. And I think it's going to be a nice little battle between two teams that I don't think anyone really had posted in the final. But that's going to be on Sunday, July 6th. And Larry says, please no penalty kicks. Yeah, penalty kicks. I don't want it to go to penalty kicks because, number one, that's the ickiest way to win a game, whether it's in a tournament or whether it's in a regular standard game. And number two, I don't think the fans of the U.S. can take any more of that. I think everyone in the U.S. is going to be glued to their TV and their heart is going to be racing if it comes down to PKs. But all in all, I'm excited for this matchup, and I think it's going to be super duper fun. So next up, continuing the international scene, you got the Women's Euro Series, and it just got underway, and it's the UEFA Women's European Championship. So far we have some final scores coming in. We got Italy edging out Belgium 1-0, and then Spain rolled over Portugal 5-0. Those were the scores today. And then did we have any scores yesterday? We did.
Finland beat Iceland 1-0 to open
Finland
up the play, Iceland. And Norway beat Switzerland 2-1.
Yes, Norway beat Switzerland 2-1. So, yeah. So, of those four matches, what do you think of those matches? And were there any surprises?
I don't really know if there was. I think Norway getting the win. Remember, this tournament is in Switzerland. So Norway getting essentially a road victory, I think, was good for them. Hergerberg had the goal in the 54th minute, and an own goal kind of doomed Switzerland in there. It's no surprise Spain dominated today over Portugal. Esther Gonzalez, who has been the person who's the favorite to win, I think, the Golden Boot in NWSL, 2 goals. Spain had 4 in the first half. That's the kind of clinical performance that you need to start a tournament. So good job by Spain. Italy gets the goal from Ariana Caruso in the 44th minute against Belgium. Italy usually is in these things. So that's going to be fun. But I'm looking forward to this weekend, Teran. I talked about it the other day. You kind of have the battle of the countries that were involved in the Revolutionary War on 4th of July weekend, and that's France versus England, 3 p.m. on Saturday on Fox. England, I think, has probably one of the favorites in this tournament. France is usually up there as well. That should be a fun matchup. You have the Wales against the Netherlands at noon Saturday on Fox. And then tomorrow, Denmark against Sweden. Gotta like the Swedes in that one. And Germany against Poland. Germany, the heavy favorite in that one. I think Germany's up there. England, I'm going to pick England to win this thing. But that France-England matchup is competitive. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to pick England. France-England's going to be competitive. I'm going to pick Spain. I'm going to ride Esther Gonzalez in Spain to win this tournament.
Yeah, I think Spain, after looking at that first match, I think Spain is the real deal. And I definitely think that they're going to be a tough out for everybody. And you mentioned Esther Gonzalez. She has definitely been phenomenal in the NWSL, and she's carrying that over to the UEFA Women's European Championship. So I would have to roll with Spain. Maybe Italy, as Larry B says, Forza Italia! Popping in the chat room again. Thank you for tuning in, Larry. Much appreciated. But yeah, Spain looks pretty good. I definitely think they're an early favorite to win it all. I would probably pick them to win it all. Italy also looks solid as well, but there's still a long ways to go when it comes to this. So, any other thoughts before we shift gears over into the MLS?
I think it's good you get this kind of international championship. You have basically 3 international championships going on at the same time. Obviously, the groups are not as this one's more inclusive. There's not like 35,000 countries, which I think is kind of a good thing because you get the best of the best going at it. But I kind of wish that you don't get these draw kind of things. But again, France and England, I think is going to be fun on Saturday afternoon for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's a big fun time for all soccer fans, especially for those that are like big fans of the European leagues and whatnot, and for like the international scene. But shifting over to MLS action, so there is a match happening right now. It's NYCFC taking on Toronto FC, as they're actually in the second half at Yankee Stadium, where NYCFC actually leads 1-0. So knock on wood for your sake, for the teams that you cover, Ricky, that they hold on and win. But rewinding it back to last weekend, you had the Columbus Crew taking down the Philadelphia Union 1-0 at home. That was a big win right there. You had the Vancouver Whitecaps earning a hard-fought win over LAFC 1-0 on the road. So that was a great win. And then bouncing back to Saturday, we had CF Montreal beating NYCFC. I'm sorry to bring that up, Ricky, as they beat them for the second time this season, 1-0. Nashville SC beat DC United 1-0. New England and Colorado tied 3-3. The New York Red Bulls and Minnesota United tied 2-2. FC Montreal and Orlando City SC. FC Cincinnati took down Orlando City SC 2-1. Orlando rolled past Portland 3-0. Chicago outlasted Charlotte 3-2. San Diego continues their stellar first season, winning 3-2. Houston had little to no problems against St. Louis, winning 1-0. Sporting KC and Real Salt Lake tied 1-1. The Galaxy, oh my God, they didn't lose, but they didn't win either, as they wound up tying against They wound up tying in Stanford Stadium against the San Jose Quakes 1-1. And the Seattle Sounders took down Austin FC 2-0. So, Ricky, your thoughts on some of these scores and what is going on with NYCFC and the New York Red Bulls?
So NYCFC, look, their coach was not at the last match against Montreal due to personal reasons, but at the same time, Pascal Janssen, at the same time, you can't lose twice to Montreal the way they have this year. It's been really up and down. They score a lot. They don't score a lot. They are bouncing back tonight against a bad Toronto team. That's not a surprise. Red Bulls, I think, took a big hit with the Lewis Morgan injury. He's going to be out till September, which is a big loss for them. Felipe Caraballo now is gone off the team. He's now off. I think he's on another international side. So that's going to be interesting for them. They got a 2-2 draw in late against Minnesota. So that's actually a good result at home. Choupo-Moting put up the goal there. They will be taking on San Jose this week out west. The two matchups I'm looking forward to this week, Cincy at home against Chicago. Chicago has played itself into playoff position, but Evander's been money for them. 2 goals for Cincy in the last match against Orlando. He had his 11 on the year to tie Kevin Denke with 11 as well. But the Fire have definitely responded in a big way in the East. Nashville taking on Philly this week at Nashville. These two teams separated by 2 points. So this could go a long way to determine who's number 1 in the East at this point. And the Sunday match going to be 2 teams going in opposite directions. This game MLS usually features Seattle against Columbus. This game taking place in Seattle. The Sounders, how do they respond coming off of the Club World Cup? They haven't really been in the best of modes. They find a way at home to get a win against a Columbus team that is putting up good results as of late. Both teams in the top 5 in their respective conferences.
Great stuff. Great analysis right there, Ricky. And as you were breaking it down, NYCFC actually scored as they now lead 2-0 as Mitya Ilinic. If I mispronounced that, I apologize. Mitya Ilinic scored for NYCFC in the 49th minute. But looking at the teams that I'm covering, first off, the Galaxy stink. There's nothing more that needs to be said when it comes to Galaxy. They are absolutely atrocious. The fact that they didn't lose is actually surprising. And then you also have LAFC. I kind of feel LAFC is struggling a little. I feel they're kind of on the struggle bus, which is not really ideal for them, if you ask me. So they kind of gotta get some winning going, because I feel they'll get further and further behind when it comes to the Western Conference, because the West is very competitive, if you ask me. But I think they still. They weren't terrible when it came to Vancouver, but there's a reason why Vancouver is the best in the West, or one of the best in the West, while LAFC is kind of in the mid-range. And then you got San Diego. This team has just been absolutely special for the MLS. And in its first season, they've really just overall made a great first impression. And they've shown that San Diego is a good sports city. And I am happy that they're having so much success. And I can't wait to see what they can do. So looking at the matchups for tomorrow, Ricky alluded to some of these matchups. But something I wish we could have continued to see when it came to the MLS, and this is kind of me personally, I wish we could have seen LAFC and LA Galaxy face each other on 4th of July like they did last year at the Rose Bowl. But unfortunately, El Tráfico is not going to happen on the 4th. The Galaxy, on the other hand, they will be hosting the Vancouver Whitecaps, and oh boy, this is going to be a rough one. And then you got Colorado and Sporting KC, and FC Dallas and Minnesota United round off Friday's matches. So you have that there. And then you got Saturday's matchups. Charlotte will host Orlando. CF Montreal hosts Inter Miami. DC United hosts Atlanta United in the Battle of the Uniteds. FC Cincinnati hosts Chicago. Austin FC hosts LAFC. Nashville SC hosts Philadelphia. And what I think is going to be probably a barn burner matchup. Real Salt Lake hosts St. Louis City SC. Portland hosts New England. San Diego will host Houston, which I think can be a little bit of an intriguing matchup, especially with how San Diego is now the number one team in the West. We'll see if they'll stay consistent or if they'll have too much of a big head to even play soccer. But they will be at home when it comes to that matchup. And then closing off Saturday's matches, you've got the San Jose Quakes and the New York Red Bulls. I wouldn't look now, but honestly, San Jose's actually been slowly but surely creeping their way up the Western Conference. So I think it's kind of cool right there. And then the lone Sunday matchup, you've got Seattle Sounders taking on the Columbus Crew at Lumen Field. And that is pretty much that for all of your soccer matches. It's definitely going to be an exciting weekend and a lot of storylines this weekend. I mean, you look at a lot of these teams that are like jostling for position and whatnot. I think that this weekend could answer some questions, as even though Philadelphia lost to Columbus Crew, they still actually lead the MLS or the Eastern Conference by 1 point ahead of FC Cincinnati. And San Diego, like I mentioned, they are the best in the West, but the Vancouver Whitecaps are not too far from them. So got to keep an eye on them. So that'll do it for some MLS. Anything else you want to add, Ricky, before we take our first commercial break?
So you look at the two, San Diego, I think, is a tree match with Houston. Houston right now is 3 points out of a projected playoff spot. And as we get closer into the early summer, you start thinking about those kind of things. So that should be a fun test for Houston. And then Austin and LAFC, these two teams right now are tied for 7th in the West. So this is one of those good head-to-head, try to get some separation and move up the standings. So those two other matchups in the West to keep an eye on.
Great. Awesome. And then I guess there was a report saying that the Columbus Crew has sells stake value at $900 million. So that's kind of cool right there. They were in the MLS Cup Championship a couple seasons ago where they beat LAFC. So there was that little bit of news right there. And I don't want to get too much into it because I'm not Jess from Shin Pads and Shenanigans, but I digress. But anyway, we're going to take ourselves our first commercial break. When we come back, we've got some WNBA news. We got a little MLB action. We got a little NBA and NHL offseason news and so much more. So keep it locked here. You are listening to Lead Off Thursdays here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
IE Sports Radio fans, this show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, Single A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Hey there, IE Sports Radio fans. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
Back with the second segment of Lead Off Thursdays here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Thank you to those two sponsors, Planet Jerky, Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, and Seal the Deal Wax Seals for being the official sponsors of IE Sports Radio. All right, but let's get into some WNBA action. So the WNBA has been outstanding. It just continues to be awesome. So live action happening right now. The Indiana Fever, who just won the Commissioner's Cup championship, they are just thumping the Las Vegas Aces 74-52. Ricky, prepare to rub it in my face. The Liberty are beating the Sparks 87-78. Surprisingly, it's that close, but the Liberty are on their way to winning. We got a close one between Seattle and Atlanta. Then at halftime, Dallas leads Phoenix by 18, 61-43. And then at halftime, Minnesota leads Washington 43-38. So talk to me about those New York Liberty who have been continuing to rise above adversity and whatnot, even though these teams are starting to become more and more on the rise.
Well, this is actually a big result for the Liberty because they've actually been in a little bit of a rut lately. Their last two games, they gave up 18 threes to Phoenix in a loss. And then the other day, Atlanta got 62 points in the paint on Sunday, which is really a big surprise that they allowed that to happen. But that's what happens when you lose John Cole Jones, who is a big part of this team. Hopefully she'll be back pretty soon. You lose Leona Phoebus to Eurobasket. She came back tonight, didn't get a lot of points, but big to have her defensive presence in the lineup. Natasha Cloud, who's had some really bad shooting games, 23 points, but 7 assists, one of her better games of the year tonight. Anescu had 18. Stewie had 17. And when you have, I think as they get Jones back, the goal for the Liberty, I think, is just to get right come postseason time. I don't think you worry about July so much. So a good result for them tonight. I think the bigger result is out in Indiana. I mean, the Fever are absolutely taking it to the Aces. It's 78-54 right now with 4 minutes to go. And Caitlin Clark isn't playing. I mean, Indiana won the Commissioner's Cup in Minnesota without Caitlin Clark. And I think that was a really big result for them. Asia Wilson has 29 points for Vegas. The rest of the Aces have 25. I mean, that's a heck of a performance by Indiana's defense. Kelsey Mitchell with 22, Aaliyah Boston with 20 in that one. Storm and Dream are close, a 3-point game going to the fourth. Two good teams that go under the radar. Wings are dominating Mercury. That's kind of a surprise, the way Dallas has struggled this year. Paige Beckers with 14 in that one. And then Lynx up 5 on the Mystics. I like what Washington's been doing, but the Lynx try to make it 15-2, 10 points for Nafisa Collier at the half. But to me, the biggest statement is Indiana for what they did against Minnesota and the textbook domination they're giving to Vegas tonight.
Yeah, and honestly, good for the Fever. I mean, they've really been putting the WNBA on notice, and I hope everyone is listening and watching. And they did that without Caitlin Clark. That's amazing. And I know she was a part of the festivities when it came to the I guess it was like Instagram live stream or something was live streamed, and some things were said, but I digress in that regard. So yeah, I think it's pretty awesome what Indiana is doing, and they're not having any sort of Commissioner's Cup hangover, which I think is pretty nice. And we just had our first final with the Liberty beating the Los Angeles Sparks 89-79, which I think is pretty nice as well. So the Sparks just continue to have a dreadful season. It's just looking horrible. Oh man, it makes me sick to my stomach. They're like the second worst team in the league, and things are starting to get worse more than it's starting to get better. But looking at some of the other teams, I mean, you got the Minnesota Lynx still on top of the WNBA standings. It's good to see the Washington Mystics, as you mentioned, starting to become a little bit more relevant. They're not following the formula of the Washington Wizards and whatnot. And then Phoenix Mercury has been pretty impressive as well, and your New York Liberty has been pretty solid. As you mentioned, they had a 2-game losing streak, but now that they snapped that. And then Atlanta, Seattle have been pretty solid as well. Golden State has been pretty good their inaugural season. So all in all for the WNBA, that's pretty much kind of your update right there. And it's been exciting times. So anything else you want to add regarding the WNBA? Or anything else that you might have missed?
Big game Saturday night, 8 o'clock Eastern, is the Valkyries against the Lynx in Minnesota. Obviously, we know what the Lynx doing, but you mentioned the Valkyries, think, have really been a sneaky good team. 9-7 this year, but almost 6 players averaging double figures in scoring. This is a really well-balanced team. Kayla Thornton coming over from the Liberty, the expansion draft, she's been great, but the emergence of Tiffany Hayes as a veteran, I think, has been a big boost for this team. Of course, I think expansion teams are always tough to figure out what you expect. But let's see what Golden State can do against Minnesota this weekend in kind of a interesting, tough matchup there. And Sunday, 1 o'clock on CBS, it is the Storm and the Liberty. Liberty lost at Seattle last week, but Sabrina Ionescu missed that game with a neck injury. So we will see what happens in the rematch in Brooklyn.
Yeah, I think some other matches that you mentioned, that Golden State-Minnesota match was definitely a great one. You also have Seattle, New York. Those are kind of the battle of the original WNBA teams for the most part. Golden State, Atlanta, I think this upcoming Monday is going to be pretty fun as well. So that's that for some of the WNBA matches. And I look forward to seeing what else is in store for the WNBA because it's starting to grow and people are starting to watch and listen. So I think it's cool that some of these players are getting some notoriety and whatnot, and the league is starting to be put in on notice. So you have that right there. Jumping on over to the baseball diamond, we have some MLB happening. So a lot happened the past few days. You had Clayton Kershaw making history as he had 3,000 strikeouts, although that 3,000 strikeout might have been a little questionable, but I digress. I mean, we've had a lot of questionable ump calls. So you had the Dodgers pulling off that win against the White Sox. It would have been such a slap in the face had the Dodgers lost to the White Sox the same night Clayton Kershaw made history. But What have been some other storylines from the MLB? And has it kind of been getting better for the Yankees? Because it looks like they've got some company atop the American League East.
Actually, I think it's gotten worse for the Yankees. They've been out in Canada this weekend. The Blue Jays in Toronto is absolutely embarrassing them. The Yankees have been really struggling at men's scoring position since June 12th. They haven't been able to fix that. They're pitching. I think the bullpen's been an absolute mess. Tonight, Clark Schmidt leaves the game with forearm tightness. So that's an injury now to watch in terms of starting rotation because the Yankees pitching staff have been good. But to lose this series and lose with Rodon and Fried on the mound is a really tough blow. Toronto could be in first place with a plus 10 run differential. The Yankees are like a plus 100, and they could be in second or third. It's really weird, and I don't know how the Yankees are going to fix this. And the answer right now is just their shortstop, Anthony Volpe, who was supposed to be big, and that the Yankees passed up on so many shortstops in the past to give this kid a chance. He's been terrible. And I think at this point, can the Yankees fix what's going on as in turn? We're going to see, but the Blue Jays have definitely been very impressive in this series and have definitely taken it to them. I think what's also been interesting this week, Cal Raleigh, I think, has been so much fun to watch. He had the most home runs before July 1st since Barry Bonds. And he was named All-Star catcher. We had the All-Star teams named this week. A lot of Tigers making the teams, which is great. Jacob Wilson of the A's is going to start the All-Star game at short, which is really cool. A lot of Dodgers, of course, making it in the NL. No surprise there. But from a New York angle, Francisco Lindor actually gets to start at shortstop for the Mets, who are also reeling as well, which we'll get into a little bit with the series to watch this week. I'm really interested to see, though, what happens from an off-field perspective. There was the report today that the MLB is investigating Cleveland Guardians pitcher Luis Ortiz for 2 pitches that got flagged for gambling purposes. So now that we're really breaking down pitches for potential gambling incidents, I think it's really interesting how that market has kind of evolved in the gambling space.
Some notable things that, in my eyes, that are happening in the MLB world. How did the Dodgers start to pull away when it came to the NLS? Okay, maybe pulling away is a little bit of an extreme term just because the MLBC is a marathon and not a sprint, but they're 8.5 games ahead of those Padres. I remember that the NLS was so tight and that the Giants and the Padres had their chances to possibly close in on the Dodgers, but now the Dodgers are starting to crank it up to 11. And then also something that's also caught my eye is that the Houston Astros are starting to find their extra gear. So I think the most exciting division when it comes to the league is probably the American League East, and also maybe the National League Central, just because the Cardinals aren't too far back from the Cubs. The Brewers are trying to make their way back, but the Cubs are just looking really good, in my opinion. And the Mets, even though they kind of lost their lead in the NL East, I think they're still within striking distance. They're certainly in a better position than the likes of the Marlins, Braves, and Nationals. But looking at some of these scores from tonight, you got a lot of scores happening. You got a good amount of teams playing. You got the Mets playing the Brewers. As Ricky said, the Blue Jays are embarrassing the Yankees. You got Washington beating the Tigers, which is pretty impressive. Surprisingly, you got Colorado beating Houston, which that's a miracle beyond miracles, if you ask me. And then you have other games happening. So we only have a couple finals. We had Miami beating Minnesota and Colorado beating Houston. But as Ricky alluded to, we've got the series of the week. So Ricky, give us what you think will be some series of the weeks for this weekend.
So before we get into the good series, we got to talk. Last week we teased that there's one series that is probably the all-time worst series that we've ever seen, and it is White Sox Rockies in Coors Field. I don't know if you could pay me to watch that game. It is that bad between those two squads. I don't know. Tickets there go for like $3 or something, because to see these two teams play, the White Sox are 28-58, and the Rockies are 20-67. So it's like that is going to be one of the ugliest 3-game series that you'll ever see. But it's at Coors Field this weekend, so That's your honorable flip the series game of the weekend. Flip the series weekend where you pick the matchup we hate the most. But starting at number 5, I'm going to go Angels Blue Jays, especially the way the Blue Jays are playing. Going to be hopefully, it looks like in first place in the AL East by the end of the night. We'll see what happens with the rest of this game. Taking on an Angels team that very quietly 42-43. Yes, they're in 4th place in the American League West, but they're only 2.5 back in the wild card. And I think you're going to be interested to see like teams like the Angels and the Rangers. Can they fight to stay in that wild card race and avoid being sellers? So pretty fun series north of the border. So we'll put that at 5. Number 4, Yankees Mets. It's a Subway Series. Both these teams are kind of in a rut. Mets kind of bounced back a little bit yesterday against Jacob Mizorowski in the second game of a doubleheader. Yankees took 2 of 3 back in June, but right now both these teams are in a free fall in the last few weeks. I kind of predict one game is going to be like a 4-3 game that takes 4 hours in which both teams struggle with men in scoring position because the Mets, I think, have like the 3rd worst team at men in scoring position this year. Right now, they are tied 1-1 with Milwaukee against their old friend Jose Quintana, who's put in a good performance with the Brewers. Matchup this week, by the way, Stroman against Montas. Stroman actually against TBD right now. So Montas got pitched back this Saturday against Rodon, and then Max Fried against TBD for the Mets on Sunday in that one. Number 3, Reds Phillies. Cincinnati, I think, has been very impressive the last couple of weeks. The Reds right now are 6.5 back of the Chicago Cubs, trying to fight back in their spot in the wild card. Phillies, of course, doing their thing in the NL East. Your matchups for this weekend, Andrew Abbott against Jesus Luzardo. Saturday is Nick Lodolo and Ranger Suarez. And Sunday is Chase Burns, who struggled against Garrett Crochet last time out. Now he gets to face Zach Wheeler. So Burns' first 3 games are the Yankees, Crochet, and Wheeler. Not exactly your good first 3, but we'll see how Burns handles that test on Sunday. Number 2, it's the old 2017 World Series rematch, Astros-Dodgers. Now, I don't really know if this has, and you probably answer this better, Teran, when we get to this, if it has the same juice as it did years ago. Most of the Astros are gone. It's really an unrecognizable Astros team. They're still very good. And I think both these teams kind of defied odds because Houston's had injuries, the Dodgers have had injuries, and they still find their ways to be pretty competitive and make this a potential World Series preview. It's Lance McCullers, who is back from injury against Ben Kasparius on Friday. Saturday night is Framber Valdez against the opener Shohei Ohtani. And Sunday it is, we don't know yet for Sunday. That's 4 o'clock first pitch. So it should be a fun one there. And number 1, I think just because it's a divisional matchup, I went with number 1 for this, Cardinals and Cubs. Right now, when you look at this division, the Cardinals are 5 games back. They've lost 3 straight. So this is a must for them, I think, to take at least a game or 2 in the series to stay in striking distance from Chicago. Miles Michaelis against Colin Ray tomorrow afternoon. It's a 2:20 first pitch. Matthew Liberatore and Jamison Tyone on Saturday afternoon. And Sunday night, the first of ESPN's doubleheader. It is Eric Fetty against Matthew Boyd. Rangers and Padres, by the way, it's a 9 o'clock Sunday night baseball game Sunday, so it's 2 games on ESPN. So that's my 5. Teran, do you agree, disagree? What do you think?
Well, for starters, that is actually a good point that ESPN has 2 Sunday night baseball games, probably because it's like 4th of July weekend and baseball is America's pastime and whatnot. But yeah, that's actually a good pick for having the Angels because everyone probably had the Angels as one of the worst teams in at least the American League, but they've surprisingly been good. But me as an Angels fan, this cycle always seems to happen. The Angels start to get the attention of everybody, and then suddenly they go on a little bit of a losing streak and whatnot. Can the Angels continue their momentum? Can they rewrite that narrative? Can they actually become buyers and not sellers? That remains to be seen. I totally agree with you when it comes to the New York Subway Series. I think that's going to be a fun series right there between New York and the Mets and the Yankees. I just wish that both teams were a little bit better up to snuff, but I digress in that regard. Then kind of a sneaky series, and this is kind of a little bit of a stretch. It's kind of the Battle of the Bay series between the Athletics. We don't really know how to classify the Athletics and the San Francisco Giants, just because both those teams technically were like neighborly rivals and whatnot. I mean, Oakland, the Athletics used to be in Oakland. Heaven knows where they're going to be now. So you have that right there. And then I totally agree with you when it comes to Chicago, St. Louis being the series of the week. I think a sneaky series, in my opinion, is Kansas City, Arizona. Now, obviously, Arizona has been through the ringer and whatnot with injuries and whatnot. And in Kansas City, they're trying to make their way up in terms of being buyers and not sellers. So I would keep an eye on that matchup. Maybe Arizona plays spoiler with Kansas City. Maybe Kansas City has some unfortunate good fortune on their side, and they're able to win a few games here and there. I agree with you. And I would also maybe throw in Detroit, Cleveland, because it's like a divisional series and whatnot. So those are some other series that I would keep an eye on as well. What I don't understand is that Friday, the ticket, according to ESPN, tickets are selling as low as $75 for White Sox Rockies, which is like, you're really going to charge that little? That's as low as it gets. It's like, you should be paying fans to come to this game for both White Sox and Rockies fans. And then Saturday, lowest price for Rockies White Sox is $42. And then Sunday, I'm looking at this blind, by the way. Okay, the Elite, they have it as low as $13. Okay, they got something right when it came to this, but how are you going to have the high prices being $75 as the lowest when it comes to this Rockies White Sox series? I mean, again, it's the battle of the two worst teams in the league, but I don't know. Anything else you want to add when it comes to the MLB? Fun facts or not so fun facts before we move on?
So one other series, I guess if I had to throw one more in there, Red Sox are against the Nationals. Washington always has that 11 a.m. 4th of July game. So if you're looking for something to watch before your barbecue tomorrow, you can put that game on. Also, I want to talk about the Nationals because I think in a couple weeks we get to the All-Star game. James Wood could potentially be the story. James Wood has been so much fun to watch this season. Kind of that new Aaron Judge type of guy, 6'7", 22 years old. He's got 23 home runs, hitting .291, and he's going to be in the home run derby out in Atlanta. So he has a chance to really have his coming out party in Atlanta. I think right now, I think to me, he's the favorite to win the derby.
I like that. I think I was kind of going to say Red Sox and Nationals as well. It's just that my only problem is that both those teams aren't really up to snuff. I mean, it would still kind of be a good matchup, and maybe the Red Sox can find a way to turn it around just because they, as well as the Angels, aren't too far back of the wild card. But that's a good point to make when it comes to the Red Sox and Nationals, especially the Nationals part. So
Boston's only 6 back in the East, so I think the Red Sox, it's always the Rays and Jays and Yankees are going to beat up on each other. Tampa's in Minnesota this weekend, by the way. Boston is, if they can put up a couple of good series, they have Washington and Colorado their next two series. If the Red Sox can get on a roll here and get Bregman back after the break, they could somewhat hang around.
Yeah, definitely keep an eye on the Red Sox because now this could also mean that they could become buyers, not sellers, if those three teams in the AL East, the Yankees, Rays, and Jays, could be beating up on one another. So overall, that's basically your MLB to talk about. So we're going to quickly talk about the NBA and NHL offseason before we go into one more commercial break. So when it comes to the NBA, you got the Lakers signing DeAndre Ayton to a 2-year deal, and then they also brought Jackson Hayes for a 1-year deal. So the Lakers are at least prioritizing their big men. I mean, Jackson Hayes, he was serviceable until JJ Redick kind of had to throw him out of the lineup just because he was struggling and he wanted to keep up with the likes of the Minnesota Timberwolves' gameplay and whatnot. So I think when it came down to it, on a good night or on a normal night, the Lakers did really have kind of brought out some of their best when it came to Jackson Hayes. And I'm happy that Jackson Hayes got another 1-year deal. I think he's earned it and whatnot. So you have that right there. And something regarding the Knicks, I'm going to turn this one over to you. The Knicks are expected to hire Mike Brown as their new head coach. So talk to me about New York Knicks possibly getting Mike Brown as their head coach, Ricky.
I mean, I wasn't going to be too impressed with who they hired. I think if they had their pick, it would be Jason Kidd. But Mike Brown, to me, is a coach that does know how to win. He has won Coach of the Year twice, took LeBron to the finals in Cleveland, got to coach Kobe in LA, although that didn't go very well. He also got the most out of Sacramento. I mean, the Kings were next to nothing until Mike Brown came and really changed that offense. I know it's a lot of expectations, but Mike Brown's around a lot of expectations. I think the bigger story is how much the Knicks improved their roster. I mean, the two moves that they made, considering they don't have a lot of cap space, Jordan Clarkson, who I think could be a real bucket getter off the bench, especially when you sit Brunson for a little bit, and Gershon Yabusele, the center they got from Philly. Now you have some depth behind Cat and Mitchell Robinson. So to get those two players, I think their roster ads are more important than the coach, as we know in the NBA. And there's always, until it goes away, and I'm interested to get your thoughts, Teran, the whole LeBron stuff, because if LeBron James is really serious about wanting to win a championship, I don't know why he took the $50 million if he was just going to complain with the Lakers, but there's a team in the East that he can go to, find a way to make a deal if he wants to force his way to New York and play again for Mike Brown and end his career with a chance to really boost it. You talk about getting ahead of MJ. If LeBron won in New York, that would probably be a big feather in his cap for him. I don't know if it'll happen, but I'm really intrigued by trying to find a way to make LeBron in New York work.
Yeah, I think so too. I was also thinking that maybe LeBron would want to go back home to the Cavs and whatnot. I mean, if Cleveland has the cap space and whatnot. But yeah, that's going to kind of be the whole days of our Lakers series when it comes to LeBron and whatnot. And if he's going to come back with Lakers or if he's just going to leave and whatnot. So, and then some other quick hit news right here. We have Frank Vogel reuniting with Jason Kidd as he'll be joining the Dallas Mavericks coaching staff as an assistant coach. The two were together back in the 2020 season when the Lakers won the championship, as Kidd was the assistant and Frank Vogel was the head coach. Those were good times with Frank Vogel before he got the hook and whatnot. But I digress. And then LeBron, and yeah, that's pretty much it. As Jared Dudley is also going to be the Nuggets top assistant as he'll be leading the Dallas Mavericks, and sending well wishes to Red Panda, one of the most entertaining halftime shows in terms of the NBA, as she has a broken wrist and she suffered an injury. So we're sending well wishes and we're hoping she makes a full recovery. But that's pretty much that when it comes to the NBA offseason news. So jumping over to the NHL offseason news. So quick and dirty, anything that comes across you, as I'm seeing some Florida Panthers news and they're gunning for that three-peat.
Yeah, the fact that Florida got Brad Marchand to stay and that they're able to keep a lot of that team together really speaks to the culture that Florida has built down there. It's hard for me to think that they are not going to get back to the Stanley Cup final out of the East. To get Bennett back, we talked about last week, to get Brad Marchand, to keep him, to keep Aaron Ekblad on the roster. Very impressed with what they've been able to do. Brock Boser staying in Vancouver, I think, was a big re-signing, a 7-year deal. He gets to stay north of the border for him. Mitch Marner going to Vegas for close to $100 million. I'm sure Toronto must have thought there was tampering along the way, that seemed to be a foregone conclusion that was going to happen. But that's the day and age of free agency. We know these things before they happen. There's just too much going on. I guess locally, it's been the Rangers, I think, making the move to bring in Vladislav Gavrikov, 7 years, $49 million, to kind of be the defenseman with Adam Fox. And in turn, getting rid of Keandre Miller, trading him in the division to Carolina. The Rangers get a first-round pick next year, so they'll have two, a second-round pick, and Scott Morrow, who was Carolina's top prospect. So getting to be a little bit interesting to see the youth on this team. At this, for the other local team here, the Devils, keeping Jake Allen as their backup goaltender behind Jonas Markstrom.
Excellent. And yeah, I think that's been some good news as well. the Canes signed Ehlers to a 6-year deal, and the Sharks signed someone to a 2-year deal as well. It's a veteran defenseman, Orlov, to a 2-year deal, and so on and so forth. And yeah, I think the NHL offseason is really starting to get into full swing. And I really am excited to see what the Florida Panthers are doing. I think Florida can definitely three-peat. If they play their cards right, then the Stanley Cup is going through Florida yet again. So I'm excited for it. I'm excited to see what other teams have in store for us, especially for my Ducks, who unfortunately missed the playoffs again, and they traded away Trevor Zegras. I guess I should give some thoughts on it. That, look, Trevor Zegras, looking at first, I thought it was a terrible thing, but it's like Trevor Zegras just didn't flourish into that NHL player that I thought he would be after his first few years. I think being on the cover of NHL Live kind of cursed him as well. But honestly, I wish Zegras the best. And if the Flyers manage to revive his career, then that's on the Ducks for trading him. But that's kind of my little gist on NHL offseason. There's going to be plenty more NHL offseason to come and whatnot. So anything else you want to add before we take one last commercial break, Ricky?
I mean, I love what Carolina's doing. Like you mentioned, adding Ehlers was another big piece to that. One of the top free agents on the market. That was big. Your Ducks getting Mikael Granlund, I think, is an interesting signing for sure. And I guess from an off-ice perspective, the NHL players getting to be in the Winter Olympics this year, I think is a big good thing, because as great as hockey is in the Olympics, it's a lot better when the NHL players are in it, and it's players we recognize for playing for their country. And we saw how great the Four Nations was. Now you bring that back, that energy into the Olympics, even though it's mid-season, players want to play for their countries. We'll see with the World Baseball Classic next spring as well. So good to have the NHL players back on the international stage.
Yeah, I was actually going to mention that the NHL players got the okay to partake in the 2026 Olympics. So great thank you to the NHL for giving those players the okay and whatnot. So anyway, that'll do it for some NHL offseason news. We're going to take one last commercial break. When we come back, we're going to go to the racetrack in terms of racing, as we've got Formula One, NASCAR, and IndyCar this weekend. And we've got some Wimbledon to close off the show. Keep it locked here. You were listening to Lead Off Thursdays here on IA Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
Rise and shine. It's 4 a.m. The stars are still out. The sun is beneath the horizon, but it's time to punch in and go to work. The comfort of your warm-ups turns into the grinding out of your reps as the clinking and the clanking of the plates create a symphony of euphoria. There's no other feeling like it. Earn it, burn it, and take what's yours. IE Sports Radio has proudly partnered with Vital Apparel, a brand that not only fits great, but also promotes and donates to mental health research. Use our code IESR to get 15% off their comfortable and inspiring gym wear and help them on their amazing journey to support mental health. Go hard, take part in your iron therapy, and be strong. Because when your mental health is as strong as you are, there's no telling how far you'll go. For the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iesportsradio.com. At iesportsradio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the IE Sports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop, including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at IE Sports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
Back with the final part of Leadoff Thursdays here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Definitely check out our website and also check out Vital Apparel. We greatly appreciate them, as well as Planet Jerky, Premium Brisket, Beef Jerky, and Seal the Deal Wax Seals for being the official sponsors of IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Going over to the racetrack, you got some Formula One action as you've got the Great Britain Grand Prix, or the British Grand Prix are this weekend. And some of your favorites are as follows: Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri, Max Verstappen, and Lewis Hamilton are the four favorites. I think Lando Norris was the one that wound up winning last week. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, the Formula One race is heading to good old jolly old Great Britain. So I think it's going to be another fun race as always. It's so weird not to see Max Verstappen just dominating. But Ricky, what are your thoughts when it comes to Formula One this week?
We also have the rookie Antonelli starting 3 spots back in the grid for the collision with Verstappen last week. So you have that kind of drama going into Great Britain. I think when you have this, this is a big one for Lewis Hamilton. He won this race last year. Of course, it's in his home country, so he's going to want to make a big statement as usual. But it's hard to doubt what Norris and Piastri are doing. They are kind of dominating with McLaren and really starting to get in Verstappen's head, I think, a little bit after his reign of dominance. So it should be a fun week in Great Britain. I'm going to go with Lewis Hamilton, though, to repeat.
That's right. This is kind of his home turf. So, yeah, Lewis Hamilton has definitely been – I think Lewis Hamilton obviously is kind of in search of that big breakout race in terms of winning. I'm interested to see what Max Verstappen can do. I feel his struggle must be studied. But I think if there's ever a race that he needs to win in, it's got to be this one. I really am also looking forward to also I forget his last name. Isn't it like – it's something Russell, George Russell, I think. George and Russell, yeah. Max Verstappen when it comes to their little thing, their little beef and thing right there. But overall, it's going to be another exciting race when it comes to Formula One. And also, if you haven't seen the movie Formula One, I hear it's really good. So that's kind of a little bit of a wild card I like to throw out there. So there's that for Formula One. Staying on the racetrack, you got NASCAR Chicago. The Windy City will be hosting this week's NASCAR race as Shane Van Gisbergen is the favorite from what I'm seeing. Then you got Kyle Larson, Chris Bell, Tyler Riddick, Ty Gibbs, Chase Elliott, Alex Bowman, the reigning champion of this race, and Joey Logano, who is the defending series champion. So overall, those are some of your favorites, and I think it's going to be a great race. Shane Van Gisbergen has definitely been the surprise of this season. And he's a heavy favorite to win it by quite a bit. But you kind of also got to keep an eye on Kyle Larson. Larson has kind of been in search of that big breakout win. But you never know when it comes to a race like this. And Chris Bell, don't count him out by any means. So we'll have to see when it comes to this race. But overall, I really like Shane Van Gisbergen. He's been on a tear as of late. And heaven knows if he can win this whole NASCAR series thing. So what are your thoughts on NASCAR this week, Ricky?
It's hard to doubt that Gisbergen should be the favorite. I mean, the last road course at Mexico City, he was absolutely dominant. So it's hard to think that he won't do that well again here on another street road course kind of vibe. I guess I had to throw a wild card in there, maybe Joey Logano. I mean, Joey Logano has played well at Chicago in the past. He's had a couple top 15 finishes last year. Wasn't great for him. We'll see if he bounces back in a big way here. I agree with you on Kyle Larson, I think he's due for something. Road courses are always tough to predict, though, because you always think it's going to be the top guys, but some guys are very good at road specialties, and that's, I think, where Gisbergen kind of rise to the occasion here.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what Shane Van Gisbergen can definitely do the rest of this NASCAR season and in this race this weekend. I think it's going to be another fun race, and the Windy City has definitely been busy in terms of like hosting sporting events this weekend, but I digress. So that is that for NASCAR. And then finally, to close off the racing series for this week, you got IndyCar, which is heading to Mid-Ohio. So some are the favorites are as follows for this weekend: Alex Palou, Kyle Kirkwood, Pato Award, and then you got Scott Dixon as well. So honestly, I definitely think it's going to be another fun race when it comes to IndyCar. I feel this race might be the closest in terms of like predicting a winner when it comes to this, just because Pato Award is definitely on the rise. Alex Palou just continues to just tear everyone and eat them for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Scott Dixon is obviously a IndyCar, I wouldn't say fan favorite, but an IndyCar well-known. And then Kyle Kirkwood, he's got the third odds on the board when it comes to this event. So I'm excited to see what IndyCar has in store for us. What are your thoughts when it comes to IndyCar this week?
It's really been interesting because Alex Palou and Kyle Kirkwood seem to continue to dominate. We're trying to always find that surprise kind of pick. I'm going to go with the guy, Scott McLaughlin, who always seems to race well in Ohio. He's got a top 5 each of the last 3 years. Maybe he's due for something special and picking up a win here. Newgarden has been pretty good. Will Power is another guy to keep a name on as well. But it's been really interesting for IndyCar this year where you have 2 drivers that seem to dominate. And we used that in Formula One. We're kind of not used to that in IndyCar because in the past you're used to so many competitive drivers. Especially, I think Scott Dixon was relevant a decade ago as well. Back in his early years, you had the Tony Kanans, the Helio Castroneves, the Dario Franchittis, the late Dan Weldon. But now it just seems to be dominated by a couple. And I wonder if that's good for the sport if 2 guys keep winning, especially a sport in IndyCar trying to gain more relevance with that Fox contract.
Well, that was kind of the case when it came to Formula One. You had Max Verstappen and you also had Lewis Hamilton just being the 2 titans when it came to Formula One. And then Max Verstappen just pretty much was winning everything back in the past. But that's actually a good little theory and a good little nugget right there, just because you have 2 titans that are like atop of the IndyCar standings and just running train on everybody. I think this race is going to answer some other questions on maybe there could be a third banana. Will Alex Palou just continue his dominance? Will Scott McLaughlin throw his name into the hat right real quick? Will Scott Dixon be able to defy the odds, even though the odds are just really close when it comes to the top 4? So overall, it's another exciting race when it comes to IndyCar, and the land will be hosting this, or Mid-Ohio at the very least. But overall, that is basically that for IndyCar. So to close off the show, we've got a little bit of Wimbledon action. So a lot of upsets that happened, not just on the men's side, but on the women's side, a.k.a. Coco Gauff, who was upset in the first round. So I remember on the opening series on Tuesday, Ricky, you said that, 4 of the top 10 seeds fell in the first round, or correct me if I'm wrong.
No, that's correct. And the men took another bit of a hit today. The number 4 seed, Jack Draper, who is the pride of Great Britain, lost in 4 sets to veteran Marin Cilic, who is kind of making a Cinderella run of his own, trying to get to the second week past U.S. Open champion. So Draper being out really changes some things. Look, it's been a wild couple of days at Wimbledon where just the top players are either getting tested or losing. And it's really, I think on the men's side especially, it kind of opens the door. Like I would be shocked if it was not Sinner versus Alcaraz in the final, though Alcaraz had a scare in the first round going to 5 sets. Novak's playing well. Taylor Fritz has played 5 sets each of his first 2 matches. He finally got a break. And I think Fritz, with his draw opening up with Zverev losing, that's the American that could get to the semifinal with Tiafoe losing. Tommy Paul lost today in 4 sets. That was a little bit disappointing. So kind of Fritz is carrying the mantle for the American men, trying to win their first Wimbledon since like Pete Sampras in 2000, which I think is really crazy. So I think that's interesting. Ben Shelton's another one that I really like. He got a bad break today. I don't know if you saw this, Teran. Obviously, Wimbledon, they don't have lights outside of those two, center court and court one. Ben Shelton had match point. They suspended the match. So he'll have to come back tomorrow to maybe play 1 point. That, to me, that's where you couldn't finish the game. There was that few sunlight, but Ben Shelton's a player who rises in majors. He seems just running the center and Alcaraz all the time. I think he could be a player that really makes a difference this week if he can get a break here or there. Maybe there's another big upset that helps him out. On the women's side, I'm really intrigued tomorrow. The number 1 seed, Aryna Sabalenka, she takes on the pride of Great Britain and Emma Raducanu. That is going to be, Sabalenka is going to feel like the enemy in that match. How she handles that on center court is going to be fun. Madison Keys is having a good tournament so far. With Goff out, she can make a run. Amanda Anisimova, I think, is number 13 seed, is it? Naomi Osaka's made the 3rd round. Another match I'm intrigued by, Iga Swiatek is going to try to take on 2 Americans. She beat Katie McNally. She's playing Danielle Collins in round 3. But the round 3 match, to me, Emma Navarro's played well. But the round 3 match to watch, Mira Andreeva, 7 seed, really young player. I think she's from Russia. She's played well, but she's going to take on Heather Baptiste, an American who's 55th in the world. Maybe she has that run. If Baptiste wins and Navarro beats her opponent in Krejcikova, they would play in the 4th round. So you could get definitely some good Americans to watch over the next couple of days. But Wimbledon's been fun. And the men's side, don't sleep on Djokovic. Try and win that 25th slam. And he has said on grass is the best chance for him to get slam 25. And he is through to the 3rd round.
Yeah, when it comes to the whole Wimbledon, it's amazing having a lot of parity with a bunch of these seeds falling. And I really want to see Novak Djokovic win the whole thing. I think that'd be pretty awesome to see him get that 25th Grand Slam. Are there any underdogs we can watch out for when it comes to Wimbledon before we move on to our official final topic for this weekend?
In terms of an underdog, on the men's side, I think the name to watch is João Fonseca from Brazil. He's 54th in the world, but he is a player that one of the young guns in this field. He is only 18 years old, but he has been a player to keep an eye on. He has a pretty favorable draw until a potential quarterfinal match with Alcaraz. So I think you could maybe put him as a guy that can make a run on the women's side. I mean, besides Baptiste, I think she could make some noise. But the interesting one is, I'm going to say it's tough to say she's an underdog, but Naomi Osaka's back. And having her back is first great for the sport. She takes on Pavlyuchenkova in the 3rd round. The path to Naomi Osaka to make another run at a slam is pretty favorable. She would play Anisimova in a projected quarterfinal, Sabalenka in a semifinal. But it's been a while since we've seen Naomi Osaka back in the 2nd week of slams. I'd be really interested to see how she would do if she got back there again.
Awesome breakdown right there. Awesome stuff. And definitely keep an eye on Wimbledon, not just on the men's side, but on the women's side. I think it's going to be a very fun tournament, especially with the amazing opening that we had to start. So before we get on out here, obviously tomorrow is the 4th of July, where everyone's going to be having barbecues and they'll be having hot dogs. So tomorrow is the Nathan's Hot Dog Eating Contest. And the man, the myth, the legend, Joey Chestnut will be partaking in this we have a background for hot dogs. So it's absolutely amazing that we get to see Joey Chestnut back doing his thing. So what are your thoughts when it comes to the Nathan's Eating Hot Dog Contest? And do you think Joey Chestnut will win this year?
It's hard to say that he won't, because he just seems to usually win everything. It's great to see him back in this event because I feel like it creates more excitement when he's in to see, can he continue to keep breaking his world record of hot dog eating, which right now his over-under is 71 hot dogs and buns, which is amazing. It's not even his record. His record is 76. Like, I'm just amazed somebody could eat that many hot. It doesn't seem like there's a challenger. Like, I feel like last year when it was found out he couldn't participate, the popularity wasn't there. And you had the whole Chestnut versus Kobayashi thing on Netflix, which I kind of miss that. But I have a friend who's really into the major league eating scene. Like I'm really interested when they go, he's like the buffalo wing eating, taco eating, White Castle burger eating champion of the world. Like there's so many different championships. But it's the chase for Chestnut to break the world record. I don't know if he'll do it, but hard of me to pick that he's not going to win this again.
Yeah, I think Joey Chestnut should win this one fairly easily. I think he's just built differently. I'm not a professional eater. I would never want to do that. That's for sure. But I don't know where he puts it all. Like that seems to be the mystery. Where does Joey Chestnut put it all? How does he train? What does he eat the rest of the year? Does he not eat? Does he just drink liquids and whatnot? That seems to be, those are like the $1 million questions when it comes to Joey Chestnut. But I'm excited for this Nathan's Hot Dog Eating Contest. It's a yearly annual tradition that I love to see, and everyone is going to love to see it. And that's what we have in terms of the 4th of July tomorrow. But on that note, I think that is going to do it for this week's episode of Lead Off Thursdays. Unless you have anything else you want to add, Ricky, before we get on out of here.
Real quick, PGA Tour, John Deere Classic. We're 2 weeks away from the Open Championship. And I think it's going to be interesting. Can an under-the-radar player play well? Doug Gim, your first-round leader, he shot a 62. But not a notable field, but still somebody trying to punch their ticket. Max Homa, 1 shot off the lead. Can he get back to his competitive form that we saw from a couple years ago?
And then something to watch for when it comes to my neck of the woods, in terms of my mind, is the AVT's Denver Open. It's a contender event. It's a beach volleyball tournament, and it's always one of the more fun events. And we're going to start to see some of the notable names from the AVP. The tournament starts tomorrow, July 4th, and then it goes all the way through Sunday. It's going to be held in Aurora, Colorado. So if you're in the area, definitely keep an eye on that. But Ricky, that is another week of Lead Off Thursdays. Look, thank you for joining me. It is greatly appreciated. And where can all these people find you?
So you can follow me on X at Liquidator555 to follow the New York account, ISR_New York. Got a lot going on. We're going to have a lot of Subway Series conversation this weekend with both teams in opposite directions. And you can tune into the primetime preview. Taking a week off with the 4th of July, but we'll be back next Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern for some fun Friday takes. But thank you for having me on, Teran. Had a lot of fun and be excited to see what emerges with soccer this weekend with the Club World Cup and the Gold Cup. And next weekend, we'll have one more week of the first half in baseball. So excited to get closer to the All-Star game as well.
I'm excited for this weekend too. Always a pleasure. Definitely check out our website. Check out our social media. Subscribe to us on YouTube. We greatly appreciate it. Monday, you've got Adam Harnick with the opening series. Tuesday is a little bit of a question mark, but we'll see when it comes to flag on the play, challenge on the play. Wednesdays, you've got Larry B with the defining moment. Thursday, you got me with Lead Off Thursday. And then Friday, we've got Primetime Preview with Ricky K. For Ricky K and myself, Teran Rodriguez, as well as everyone here at Ice Sports News, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. Have an amazing weekend. Be safe, be well. Don't eat too much hot dogs. Don't eat too many hot dogs, or do. But more importantly, don't blow your hand off when it comes to the 4th of July. Have yourself an amazing weekend, and I will see you Monday for Set Point, and next week here for Lead Off Thursdays. Have a great weekend. Peace!